So, with that in mind, great pleasure to introduce our host, interviewer, conductor here at the main interview, and then Max. Max Wolff is, you've seen his CV online probably, is a psychotherapist, psychologist, also a researcher in the area, and also someone involved in training professionals. So he wears three hats. The hat of a therapist, which he feels, we were talking over lunch, he feels like it's something that it's very important to have when you're researching a theme and when you're training others in a topic. And so he's a therapist with clinical practice, but he's also a therapist, a psychotherapist, I would say, that's a therapist, but also a researcher in the area. And that's very neat because there's not that many, well, research in psychotherapy is already a challenging endeavor, generally speaking. Research in psychotherapy within the field of psychedelics is really sort of groundbreaking. And I don't think there's a lot more people doing actively empirical research with the use of psychotherapy and psychological aspects that psychotherapy would tap into within the context of psychedelic assisted therapies. And so Max has been thinking about this, reflecting, writing. Theory is theory-based, which is something I personally appreciate a lot, because sometimes in this field, because it's not such a sort of long developed field of psychotherapy and psychedelics, although it has a long history, but come on. But at the moment, we see a lot of ideas, a lot of inputs from different angles, from different perspectives, from different theories. And having been involved a little bit with theoretical work in psychology, I really appreciate when there is clarity about what there's theoretical clarity, theoretical integrity around a certain perspective, and there's other perspectives, instead of a mixed match of constructs and ideas that sometimes go well together, sometimes they don't. So Max has been reflecting, he's going to talk more about it. But also, I think you're director of training at Mind, right? The research and training. So you may have heard of the augmented psychotherapy training, APT, so augmented psychotherapy training, that the Mind Foundation started maybe 3 years ago. I think you're now in the 5th cohort of people coming in. So one of the first and maybe one of the most intensive, and I would say probably most comprehensive and well thought out training opportunities out there, and there's many at the moment, fortunately. And so you can see why we wanted Max here. As you know, from Safe Journeys is lately a bit more focused on professionals, practitioners in the field from different angles. We have a new directory that I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, know. And so we're focusing more. We had Team Read last month in Porto, another very important and thoughtful psychotherapist, a medical doctor, interestingly, and now we have a psychologist with perspectives on psychotherapy in psychedelics. So that's why I've known Max for maybe over a year. We've been interacting online for collaborations, topics that we wanted to cover, and then we met personally, I think the first time at Insight this last time. I was very fortunate because we managed to sit together in a private dinner, luckily, because Max was the person that I wanted to talk to and the empty seat was next to us. So we chatted.
I always have empty seats next to me. I don't know why.
This meeting,
Nobody wants to sit next to me.
this meeting was the best seat in the house. It was a very, very strange, very particular meeting. But anyway, but we had been in contact. We actually had a Zoom at some point early on because of a common interest. And I've heard Max talk 3 years ago at Insight, or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I believe. And I realized that we had someone with a very clear line of thinking and intervention. So very good that we were able to attract Max to come to Portugal. He's familiar with our country, and so that made it just a bit easier. So thank you, Max, for coming. Short notice, short trip. You have another engagement tomorrow for another debate, but then it's holidays. Then it's a little bit of a break. I don't know if you're familiar with this person, this individual. Some are, some aren't. I think most are. Ana Cruz, also a psychotherapist, clinical psychologist, and someone who's been involved now with psychedelic therapy, with psychedelic assisted therapy, but also psychotherapy, broadly speaking, in the context of psychedelic use, which is very important these days. She also has a doctoral degree in the area of psychology. So we thought she would be, besides being our friend and our loved friend, and yeah, I could go on. That should be. É melhor ficar cá. Fica só para nós. Fica só entre nós e eles todos. Já sabem o que eu queria dizer assim. So we thought, Anna would be an ideal host for the conversation we're going to have. Some of you know that we'll have an informal chat that Anna will conduct with sort of questions and answers, and then at some point we will be invited also to participate. You'll be invited to participate, and we're usually flexible on time. We're almost starting on time, but there'll be time for your questions after if you have some. You'll find out that Max is very accessible and approachable, and you wouldn't mind any sort of questions, I think. So we'll have that, and then we'll free to stay along for a bit longer or to leave, depending on your commitments. It's Sunday night after all, but we have a little bit of food for us to network slightly. And that's it. Thank you for coming, and have a good chat.
So, how are you for this conversation?
Yeah, yeah, very good. Thank you. Also, I want to say thank you again for inviting me here. It's a really huge honor, and I'm not sure if I can be entertaining, interesting enough for this event today. But yeah, when you invited me, I immediately said I want to come to Bosnia because I feel connected to this country and to the Portuguese-speaking culture in general. And I also, from the first time we interacted, I felt like these are the kinds of clear theoretical conversations that I like to have, while also having kind of a touch of reality relatedness to it, and yeah, also maybe taking things too seriously all the time. Yeah, so I enjoy that very much. And yeah, thank you all for coming tonight.
Let me tell you that initially I'm always anxious.
Yes.
So I have this very easy way of warming up. And that is looking at them and asking them questions. So may I ask you, how many of you are psychologists? Raise your hand, please. Okay. And now, how many of you are psychiatrists? By far. And now, how many of you are therapists? Okay. And now, a more easy one. And this is about Max's work, and this is why I feel so honored to be here and to be able to do this interview. How many of you have already had therapeutic experiences through psychedelics? So Max's work is about this, and thank you so much for bringing light to this gap between psychotherapy and psychedelic therapy. For me, that is much important. And also about bringing common factors of psychotherapy to this field. We all need this much. And also, and I think not less important, for maybe helping to bring also the bridge between research and practice. What in this field is also very important, in my opinion. But let me ask you first, and as you know, I'm a psychotherapist. I'm much better doing this in a psychotherapeutic field. So if you don't feel uncomfortable in any moment, please tell me much. So for me, psychodrama found me. I didn't search for psychotherapy, but psychotherapy found me. And I would like to know how it was for you. How it was, how did you find psychedelics, or if it's psychedelics you found it, or psychotherapy?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. So, I mean, first of all, I should probably say I, like many people in the field, found or started being interested in psychedelics as a research topic and as a therapeutic method through my own experiences with these substances. I also think it could be a problem that all researchers and all therapists are psychedelic users, and I very much appreciate that people who do not use psychedelics, or perhaps who do not use them very regularly, should also be involved in psychedelic research and therapy. We also train people in the ABT program who have never had substance experiences with psychedelics. Many in the field would say that's impossible. I wholeheartedly disagree. I think some of the best therapists I know have never taken psychedelics, and they can still be very knowledgeable about it. You're already noticing I'm giving very long answers. I should probably stop. Should probably take a shorter route. Yes. So I was justifying why I speak about my own psychedelic use and connection to my interest in these substances. So I started using psychedelics as a young adult, like most people, actually for fun. So with a hedonic motive, to have fun with friends, to feel connected with them, to be in nature, to enjoy music. Not so much a therapeutic motivation or intention, but rather hedonic. And I was already interested in psychology and studying. And then I made some observations that I found really interesting. And so people always say psychedelics change you completely and they give you a completely new perspective. I often think also that's not really necessarily the case, because when I took psychedelics for the first time, I did exactly what I always do. When I have a new experience, I try to understand it very cognitively and build a scientific theory around it. So that didn't change. So something I observed, for instance, was I had a friend, a very dear friend, who was sometimes with me when we were taking mushrooms. And this friend had this habit, when he took mushrooms, to wait a little bit before he could start to see the first effects. And then he would get sort of, uneasy, motorically a bit agitated, and then he would get up and walk around in circles, like for maybe half an hour or an hour even. Yeah? He would look very kind of even a bit distressed, sweating, sitting down again because it's exhausting, and getting up again. And this was really funny for most of us, because we were already making fun of it, and it would be like that every time. And I tried to understand what's going on there. And of course, that's not the whole story of his psychedelic experience, because otherwise he would probably not do it again if it was just this walking around.
What were you at the time?
I think in my early 20s or something. Yeah. So he told us the beginning is always really unpleasant. When he sits down to rest, he gets uneasy feelings in his body. When he closes his eyes, he even sees unsettling images, crushed insects, things like that. And he doesn't want that, so he gets up and walks around again. And then it gets better. tolerable. And then after an hour or an hour and a half or so, then the good part of the experience begins. And then he can enjoy nature, enjoy joking with friends, has these things why people usually take psychedelics. They don't take them normally to walk around in circles. So I wanted to understand what that was about. So it seems obvious that he was avoiding something. It was unpleasant and couldn't stand it. So walking around, trying to distract yourself, moving, looking at things, closing the eyes would always bring these images back. So I understood that psychedelics make it apparently difficult to avoid something. It's more difficult in psychedelic states to distract yourself from something that you don't want to feel. So that was one observation that I made. And then later, I was traveling once in South America, in Colombia, and I was invited to take ayahuasca with a group in a big city, with a group of people, a large group of people from the city, like normal people, come together for ceremonies, like regular people from the city. And this was the first time I really had the opportunity to watch people know what they're doing, and who also have a traditional established rituals around this experience. And then I noticed that this encouragement to turn the attention inwards, lying down, having a very undefined sensory input. You're not moving, you're not seeing anything clearly, it's dark. That's the opposite of what my friend is doing when he's running around in circles, right? Getting distraction, getting physical movement,